Friday morning. Welcome to this week's episode of Finding God in the Dark. My name is Don Stevens, serving Asbury UMC in Woodstown and St. John's UMC in Harrisonville, New Jersey.
And I am Jonathan Campbell. I'm the pastor of Lacey United Methodist Church in Forked River, New Jersey.
And Jonathan and I this week went to the movies again,
Yeah.
uh, which is, we don't do that all that often, but we've done it 2 weeks in a row now. And we saw The Wild Robot. It is a Dreamworks animation film
Yeah.
directed by Chris Sanders. Did I get that right?
I'm not sure. I didn't look it up, to be honest.
I do. I have it. I just had to put a lock screen on my phone for some reason, and now I have to. Wild Robot. It is. Well, let's do stars because I know the stars. It stars Lupita Nyong'o, Pedro Pascal, Mark Hamill, Ving Rhames,
Yeah.
names you'll know.
Yeah.
Why are you showing me that?
Yeah.
All right, never mind. It's directed by the guy who directed How to Train Your Dragon. I think it's Sanders is the last name.
I can.
I don't know. I was looking up on IMDb and it's giving me like, ads for the movie. I don't need to see that. I already saw you already got my money. Um, so anyway, I was first impression. I thought this film was really delightful. I mean, it
Yeah.
was
It was great.
very
It was
cute.
really great.
I
It was
loved
great.
it.
Yeah. And it actually is Chris Sanders. He actually wrote the screenplay as well. So,
There you go. Yeah. So I think I mean, it's based on a book.
yeah.
My son has read the book, which is why he wanted to go see the movie. We talked about that a little last week, and no, he didn't get to go see it, but he brings his grades up, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was just delightful. I mean, really, really cute film. Sure, is it a little cliche? Is there some stuff? Yeah, it's familiar ground. Yes, I know. I've seen that. I understand. But honestly, I mean, I'd see it again. I thought it was
Yeah.
really good.
No,
Uh,
I thought it was a very good movie.
yeah,
And had a lot of good things to talk about. And that's what we're here to do, right?
that's what we're here to do. So where do you want to start?
Um, well, I mean, I think there's a lot of issues we could delve into. I think I'll start with one of my favorite lines, which was uh, effectively, I don't know if I have it exactly right, but it was basically compassion is a survival technique or a survival strategy.
Oh,
And
yeah, I remember that. Okay, that was the
oh, no, no,
snowstorm
it
scene,
wasn't
right?
compassion, it was kindness. It's kindness.
Kindness, yeah,
Kindness is
yeah.
there's a scene in the movie where all the animals are basically in danger of dying because of a large snowstorm. They all get together to survive, and after it's all over, I think it's Roz, but one of the main characters, I think it's Roz, one of the main characters, the robot, says, "Kindness is a survival skill" or something
Yeah,
like
it was something she learned
that. Yeah,
from
yeah,
from that experience that
yeah.
kindness is a survival skill. Yeah. That was, but
Exactly.
there's so many of those little things, just
Yeah,
little things in it.
yeah.
Like I think one of my favorite scenes early on in the film. So the premise here is that this robot was stranded. There's
Yeah.
a
Well,
shipwreck.
basically, there was you get across that there's a shipwreck and four robots got kind of cast off of the ship,
Mhm.
and she's the only one that survives in pieces, not in pieces. And you know, again, the main function of this robot is always to be of service and to complete tasks. So it's like this. Her reason to living is a task to complete, right? And that's another one thing I want to get into, but let's go back to the survival thing. To
Yep.
me, if you're putting down um, kind of pithy ways to show to list the insights of what Christianity teaches. Kindness as a survival skill is
That's
is is top 10. Like
that's not
it,
a yeah, that's not a bad place to start. Yeah, I'll go with that.
I mean, it's to me one of the heart of Christian community is this idea that we are better and we will be better off if we take care of each other.
Yeah.
And and that doesn't mean just the group. That means everybody. That if
Yeah.
the human community takes care of each other, we will be better off.
Even
And
even the people that, well, in this case, right, in the animals, even the people that might hurt us,
yes,
right?
absolutely. Our
Yeah.
enemies, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So to me, that's a hallmark of Christianity. So that line is a great way to have that kind of discussion with kids, especially to say, like, the instinct, the instinct in that situation is to worry about yourself and worry about surviving on your own. That's kind of the natural wired in instinct of a biological being, right? Evolutionary development, those kind of things. But Christianity, in its ethics, teaches us sometimes you have to go against your wiring to actually get to the best of the community and the best of the world. And that's when you go against your wiring. So, one of those conversations you can have with your kids is okay, your instinct is to worry about yourself, and that's everybody's instinct. But Jesus teaches us that going against that instinct actually will make your life better and everyone else's life better around you in the long run. And that's
Yeah.
something I think that's something that more Christians should shout from the rooftop. So
I hear that. I hear that. There was, and kind of going out, you talked about tasks, right?
yeah,
So Roz, the robot named Roz, doesn't initially feel like it is her task
yeah,
to save this
yeah,
gosling that hatched in her hands and has patterned on
yeah,
her.
yeah,
So, sees her as its mother. She
yeah,
doesn't see that as her task until she encounters a possum and her brood of babies.
yeah,
And the possum says, well, that raising that goose is your task now.
yeah,
And she kind of reprograms, okay, now that's my task.
yeah.
But then she finds that there really is no end to that task.
Task, yeah,
And I love that initial whole interaction between the possum and
yeah,
the robot. The possum's voiced by Katherine O'Hara, which, if anybody remembers, is Macaulay Culkin's mom from the Home Alone films, right?
yeah.
Um, and like um, Rod says, "Well, I don't have programming to raise a child," and the possum says, "Nobody does."
Yeah, yeah,
A flashback of my dad, because my dad used to say, like for my whole life, my dad would say that parenting is the toughest job in the world, and it's always done by amateurs.
mm,
There are no professional parents.
yeah,
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 and in a lot of ways, I think that you and I could apply that same logic and that same kind of thinking to pastoring
oh yeah,
as it is to parenting, because no two churches are alike,
yeah,
no two appointments are alike, and
yeah.
it is all you're always, I joke with people, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm making this up as I go along. That's not really very far from the truth. Like I know some basic stuff, but
You always, yeah, I feel like you've at least learned one new skill set in every new church you serve. You're like, oh, never had to do this before. Okay, got to
yeah,
learn this now.
this is a new
Uh,
one. Yeah.
yeah, uh, yeah. I think too that task value thing is also a way to talk at a hallmark of Jewish and Christian thought, which is this idea of made in the image of God. This
Mhm.
idea of our worth does not lie in our tasks. Our worth does not lie in our um, material goods. Our worth lies in this idea that we are a child. We are the image.
Yeah.
of the divine, of God.
Yeah.
Um, and really, I think this movie again is a great way to have that conversation. Is at the end of the movie, Roz and I would say a bunch of other characters too. Think the fox, a bunch of the other characters learn that their value is not based on what they can do or what they have to do. Their worth is based on the fact that they're part of this community that loves them. You know, um, and
And they all band together at the end to,
yeah,
accomplish it. We don't want to give too much away, but
yeah, yeah.
to accomplish a common goal, let's say.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I think that's important too. Is I mean, you talking about things you learn as a pastor. If you a pastor long enough, you run into people that have lost their eyesight or lost their mobility or lost their spouse, and they're like, okay, there's nothing left for me. I have nothing left to give. And it's like your worth to us isn't what you can give us. Your worth to us is the fact that you're made in the image of God and God loves you. You know. But of course,
It
yeah,
reminds me kind of and maybe I mentioned this before that they when I was up in Point Beach and after Sandy,
yeah,
the church just south of us, the Methodist church just south of us, was Bayhead. And Bayhead was doing a lot of ministry, but kind of coming out of that recovery period, they had a program that they called "If You're Not Dead, You're Not Done."
mm,
You
yeah.
know, and it was very much a focus on you're not too old, you're not too, like there's a place for everybody, there's a task for everybody, there's um, yeah. And that's just, even though I wasn't part of that, shout out to Scott Boswick. Um, I do, it kind of resonated with me, it kind of stuck with me a long time. So, and
Yeah.
this is it's very much reflected in this film. The other part of that, you mentioned, like everybody has a place.
Yeah.
The main Gosling character, Bright Bill,
Mm,
is a runt.
mm,
He wouldn't normally be able to make the migration to go with the rest of the geese off the island. And yet Roz finds a way
yeah.
that he's able to do that. Now, again, since it's the same director, I have like reflections of How to Train Your Dragon there
Yeah.
a little bit,
Yeah.
um, but it just, I think it really leans into that, that being created in the image of God doesn't mean that God looks like us or we look like God, but more a matter of our intrinsic value, right?
I mean, the I would say the huge kind of influx of the last 15 years in theology has been trying to redefine that idea of um, made in the image of God, because for a lot of Christian history, it was our ability to think.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the last 15 years or so of theology, a lot of theologians have argued that it's better to see it as a mosaic, that we each have a piece of God in terms of the image of God. And if we put all those pieces together, we get a better understanding of who God is. And
Hmm.
it's not one thing, but it's something unique to each of us that changes. But if we put them all together, we better see who God is, which I think in a lot of ways really helps build this narrative of community that you see in this movie. You know,
Yeah.
um, I feel like it's important to reflect on the deficits of American culture at this moment and recognize that one of the things that most of the people that are parishioners or who are our parishioners, most people around in our communities, they are very much shaped by this idea that your worth is contingent on something outside of you. So your worth is contingent on your job. Like the way I often describe it to people is think about when you go to a party. After your name, what's the first thing most people ask you? What do
What do
you
you
do?
do? Yeah. What do you do?
Right? You know, and most people are caught, including, I would argue, me and you probably. I think we're all kind of caught in
Sure.
this idea that my worth is dependent on my job, or my worth is dependent on my money, or my worth is dependent on the friends I have, or my worth is dependent on the family I have. And that's dangerous. And the kind of the antidote that's baked into Christianity is no, your worth lies on the fact that God loves you. And and
Yeah.
what's powerful about that
Yeah.
is that doesn't change, right? So you can lose your job, you're still made in the image of God. You can get a divorce, you're still made in the image of God. You can lose all your friends, you can lose all your money, you're still made in the image of God, which means God loves you. And that doesn't change whether you screw up or anything that happens to you. And that's something all of us need, but we all struggle with to actually believe.
Yeah. And see, there's really just going on that, the intrinsic value of a human life, right? That's one of those places where I deviate from a lot of conservatives in that, I think that what you've done in your life doesn't disqualify you from life,
Yeah,
right? And maybe we've talked about this before, but if you look at something like the death penalty,
yeah,
most conservatives are in favor of the death penalty. Well, that person did something horrible and they should just die.
yeah,
I'm not. I can't be, because I believe in the intrinsic value of a human life.
yeah,
And it's not my decision to make. And nor do I want the state to make that decision for me.
yeah.
That's up to God.
Yeah. I
You
mean
know what I
that,
mean?
that no, that is I think that's the strongest argument against the death penalty is
Yeah.
that if you as a Christian really believe that we are all made in the image of God, then that person's image, even how much they have distorted it or covered it over with sin, still is there.
Right.
That's to me that's a huge part of why I'm Methodist, because Methodist theology believes you never lose that image of God.
Right.
We do not believe that you can fall so far in sin that you no longer have any of the divine left in you, any of the image of God left in you. And really, that's one of the reasons I'm Methodist, because I do not believe in total depravity. I don't believe in the idea that sin cuts you off completely from all that God gave you in creation, which was good. And to me, that's something that we need to cultivate in people and help them recognize that, okay, I'm not saying you didn't screw up. I'm not saying that something horrible hasn't happened to you in your life. I'm not saying you're facing a tragedy. I am saying that even in the midst of that, you're of sacred worth.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm right there with you on that one. That one, people say, well, how do you reconcile that? Well, I reconcile that in saying that every life has value.
Yeah.
And how do you reconcile saying that some do and some don't? Where are you drawing that line? Yeah. you know so um other thoughts, I don't know, I could probably gush about this film a lot. I really like genuinely enjoyed it. And I'll tell you what was interesting. I went to a matinee again, right? Now it was not a packed house like Conclave was last week. um but there were a number of kids.
Yeah.
It was like a 2 o'clock showing, right? So there were a number of kids there, and the kids were like enraptured. Like they were talking and chittering, twittering around, before the movie started. Once the movie started, man, they were scope locked, and I didn't hear a word from those kids until the film was over.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful film. Like
Yeah,
it's visually, it's a
yeah,
beautiful.
yes, yes,
Um, you know, uh, I think that we oftentimes devalue the importance of visuals. And, sometimes when you say animated movie, I think a lot of adults go like, oh, like,
That's a kid's movie. Yeah.
but there are things that you just can do with animation that you can't do with live action.
Right.
And one of those things is you can't do the paint canvas kind of thing that you can do with animation that you can't do with live action. I mean, you can make. I mean, Michael Mann. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. Michael Mann shoots a beautiful live action movie and uses color and uses things in beautiful ways. They're beautiful to watch, but you can't do the things that you can do with animation, like the haunting colors here, or the the just the powerful images of the takeoff and landing of the rocket ships, and like you can't create that in live action, you know.
Right. Or like that whole there's like this sort of whole montage at the beginning of the film where Roz is trying to understand the environment,
Yeah,
has activated herself, and so where am I? There's no one. She's looking for a task. She's trying to understand the environment that she's in. She doesn't understand what the animals are twittering and saying, and yeah, that whole it literally paints a picture, right? um, of just kind of the awe and the wonder of it all from the perspective of, I mean, basically it's childlike,
yeah.
this very childlike perspective of a robot who's just been activated,
Yeah.
and it's just trying to follow her programming and realizing that her programming isn't covering all of this.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And there was a point in the film. There's something about the programming. I'm trying to remember what exactly the line was. Um, because I said, she didn't have programming to be a mother. Well, there's no programming for that. You just do it. But we find out later that she's overwritten her programming. So basically, she's learned to love,
Yeah.
which, a machine shouldn't be able to do that.
Mhm.
Um, and that's okay. I get it. People are going to criticize. Well, you're giving emotions to an inanimate object. Yeah, okay, but it's a story, and what do I want to draw out of that? Not
Well,
what
it's,
is.
I mean, there are ethical dimensions to as we get better and better with technology, as we get better and better in terms of AI.
Yeah, yeah,
It probably will not be in my lifetime or your lifetime, but at some point, we're going to have the discussion of when does this robotic person or when does this computer program become more than simply a tool for us to use, and it becomes a being we actually have to negotiate and deal with ethically. And
didn't they do that in like the 80s? I think they called it Skynet. All
yeah,
right, anybody that gets that reference.
they're movie fans, so they're in the right place. But no, I do think that idea too is a powerful one that you can talk about. That we all have programming, we all have stuff that we have been given biologically through our genes, but also in terms of the culture that raised us, the people that raised us. Right? We have essentially programming, and the reality is that to make it successfully through life, you're not going to jettison that programming, but you do have to rewrite it.
Yeah, or overwrite it or add to it or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 And I mean that's a powerful idea again that we struggle with as human beings to recognize you you can't necessarily stop being this, but you can intellectually deal with it differently. You can train yourself to think about your reactions differently.
Yeah, you can be more than
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's kind of I think I've said that to my kids any number of times. The idea of, people, if you let people fire you up, if you let people agitate you, then they're controlling the situation and you're not. Like, rethink for yourself. Is this something I really want to let bother me, or is this, whatever?
Yeah.
Oh, any other thoughts on this film? Because
I
we're
would just I would just really encourage people to see it.
Yeah, I think it's well worth the time. It's fun, it's cute. Take your kids to see it. There is absolutely, I didn't catch anything in it that was objectionable. Some little, maybe a scary scene here and there.
It's
There's a
I mean it's a G-rated movie, so
It is, but there's a big scary bear, and so there's like a chase scene there, and there's another scene with a fire, and
yeah,
that sort of thing. But so little ones might, in a dark theater, might be a little scared.
yeah.
But I think everything else in this just so overwhelms any of that I think you could talk your kids through it regardless. Um, it's an adorable film. It really is. In fact, I'm already hearing people saying it's going to win animated film of the year.
Oh yeah,
Well,
I
we'll
would be
see.
surprised.
We'll see. It's
Yeah.
it's up there, I'm sure. So let's talk about next week.
Okay, so I have two things I'll throw out to you.
Okay.
Okay. Have you ever? It's probably my favorite Tom Cruise movie. Have you ever seen Collateral?
Long while ago. I have seen it, but it's been a while.
The other one I was thinking, so that I'm looking on Netflix because I figured that'd be the easiest thing for us both to do since we both have it. The
Hmm.
other one is, have you seen the Woman of the Hour? Either one of those. Okay.
I have no idea what that one is even.
Woman of the Hour is a new movie about uh, it's based on a true life story where a serial killer goes on a dating show. Yeah.
Oh, wait, I think I saw it. I may have seen it on, was it like new films on Netflix or something like
Yeah,
that?
it came out like last week or 2 weeks ago, something like that.
Yeah. Have you watched it?
I have not.
Okay.
So I'll throw either of those two out. Do either of those sound good to you?
Let's do that. Woman of the Hour. Let's do that one.
Okay, sounds
Yeah, I
good.
see it. Here it is. A serial killer on a dating show.
Well, I'm sure they take a lot of liberties. Movies always do, but an actual serial killer was a contestant on the dating game,
Right. Okay.
and he actually won. He got the date, and we'll see where that goes.
So it's loosely based on a true story.
Yes, it's loosely based on a true story.
Okay. Sounds interesting.
So
All
all
right.
those people that want to go on The Bachelor, just realize.
You know, there are many, many times in my life in the for those of you who don't know, I've been married for 33 years, going on 34. There are many, many times in those last 34 years when I've gone, thank you, Lord. Thank you.
Yeah, I
I
can
don't,
understand.
I know that dating scene and when
I can understand that. Yes, I can understand that.
and that's not, you know, that's not, you understand I ain't bagging on you here, right?
Oh, I know. Trust me, I know that. I recognize. I recognize. Trust me, if you are in the dating world, which I guess I technically am, the idea of going on a dating show and picking up a serial killer doesn't sound very good. So,
Good. I was afraid you were going to go, maybe.
is she cute? No.
Cute.
Uh,
All right, folks, we're getting ridiculous at this point.
yes, we are.
Uh, so this week's film will be Woman of the Hour. It's on Netflix. Until next week, take care. Keep going, finding God in the dark.
Bye.
Thanks for watching the Finding God in the Dark podcast. If you're enjoying these discussions,
Please consider hitting the like button down below or subscribing to follow along. We put out weekly episodes on Friday mornings, and we are so glad that you're finding this discussion of theology and film entertaining enough to follow along with us. Take care and God bless, friends.